Not that bad, of course, but you can definitely tell when you're being wife-splained.
Yeah, we got a 1/2 horsepower brain and a 50 horsepower body. Howdy, folks, and welcome to episode 533 of the Dead Robot Society. I'm Paul Lee Cooley, and joining me, as always, is my co-host, Mr. Terry Mixon.
Howdy ho, neighbor.
Is it going to be a Ned Flanders episode now?
You betcha.
Really? We're going to do this now? Don't look at me like that. So, besides, apart from watching Simpsons reruns, what the hell is going on with you?
Oh, it's been busy. Just got the edits back today for Race to Terra. So I've got the text of that finished. As soon as the cover is ready, it gets published. So 3-4 days down the road, maybe. If Donna's not feeling good, it'll be next week sometime. But it's literally 2 weeks before I expected it. So I guess that's okay.
Yay!
The audio for Hidden Enemies is out. The audio for Tree of Liberty is at the producers. So lots of things happening. I got my story off for the next Four Horsemen anthology. Got that all taken care of. Life is good. I'm busy writing my part of the next Vigilante novel with Glenn Stewart, which is always a fun thing. What's left? I did 2 chapters of Blood of Patriots, book 4 in the Humanity Unlimited saga. So I'm very productive. I've got lots of things going on. This is where you say I haven't done shit.
No, I'm not going to say
that.
Oh
my God.
I'm not going to say that. I've written, I guess, 5,000 words since Friday. 5 or 6,000 words. Not as good as I want to be, but when I go back to the story, it is alive and well. So been working on that. The unnamed work in progress.
Where everyone lives.
Good fucking luck with that. Did I say that out loud? So I've been working on that, doing all the, trying to get more of the research down. This is one of those books where it's like, oh shit, I need to know what this is. Oh shit, I need to know what this is. And then pretty soon, you fall down that Google hole. Anyway,
the research rabbit hole,
and it goes on for freaking ever. So I have a ton of that ready to go. And then I've been doing all this work on robotics. So for my quote unquote day job. So I've been having a lot of crazy context switching between languages, including English. It's been rough.
So has the research stuff you've been doing interfaced with the robotic stuff you're doing for work? And is it making its way into your story?
It is making its way into the story. It definitely is. It most definitely is. It's not transferring back to my robotics work, but the robotics work is definitely transferring into the story.
That's because your day job doesn't want to have monsters with tentacles coming after them.
I don't know. Now I'm getting into this whole deal about developing robots and things for pipelines. And I'm like, what if one of these puppies came across the black?
Lunch.
Yeah. So, there's always possibilities there, but no, it's been fun. It's been absolutely mind blowing in so many ways to work on this stuff. So I'm really excited about it. And in addition to that, I'm still recording Evolution and getting that done. So I'm busy too. Been able to get off my ass, and I guess I've had a good week and a half of good, being in a good place, which is kind of nice after months and months of not being. So I'm getting shit done. It's wonderful.
After I finished the last book that I was writing, I had to read books 2 and 3 in the Humanity Unlimited saga so that I would have a clue of what was taking place, because it had been so long. And it was interesting to see all the things that I had forgotten. I made like 17, 19 pages of legal size paper notes of things that I thought were interesting, useful, or might be notable as I was reading through. We'll see how much of it actually carries through into book 4.
Well, I'm sitting here,
but all the things I forgot, holy cow, there were so many things that I did not remember.
Shit, I just wrote this book not too long ago, and while I'm reading it, I'm like, that happened? Oh yeah, I remember that now.
It's one of the reasons why I changed my writing process to go ahead and just write the entire thing out into the dark and then go back to the very beginning and read it through one more time in 1 or 2 sittings to go ahead and figure out, oh, wait, I wrote this out and spread out over by this amount of period. I forgot something that I needed to remember. The details, they slip away.
They do slip away, which is why you should be using archivos.org
Oh, Jesus. If only I had started with Archivos, because now I've got these huge files in my OneNote that I am not ever going to have the time to transfer across.
Yeah. So, yeah, I haven't started using Archivos for the work in progress, but I've already got the information. I just need to put it in there. But regardless, yes, the details become very important. Especially considering it, especially the longer the book goes, keeping track of the details gets more and more difficult. And the same thing with the series.
Well, the more thing with as many books as you have in a series, I've been going through the Empire of Bones story Bible, looking at stuff, and I'll see something in there. I'll click on it. And I'll be like, "What is that? I don't even remember that at all."
What is that? I have no idea, but we used it. Okay, can we use it again? Sure. Did it make sense the first time around? Nope. Do you have to figure out this time? Nope. Just run with it.
It's more like I had an entry marked Operation such and such. I'm like, I don't remember this. I don't remember this at all. I don't remember what book it was in. I don't remember what context it was in. I've got nothing.
Yeah. The only way I can keep the 3 black books straight is because they all take place in different settings. You know, book 1 is locked on a rig, book 2 is locked in a lab, book 3 is locked in a hospital. Pretty easy to keep track of. Derelict, not so much.
Meanwhile, in the rest of the solar system.
Yeah, exactly. We haven't gotten to that point yet, but luckily I've staved that off. You can't stave it off forever, but I've staved it off for now. Yeah, details. You whoop your ass. They're going to whoop your ass, Terry.
You'll be very, very happy at the end of the first 3 books in the Humanity Unlimited saga. I basically killed off most of my plot problems.
I'm so proud of you. So proud of you.
Okay, I didn't kill off most of them. I killed off some of them.
Damn it. I'm no longer proud of you.
Well, I had to keep some of them. Some of the plot problems are long-acting things like, oh, the war with China. That's a little hard to kill off quick.
Yes, we're just going to pretend we never mentioned it.
If you ever finished writing a book and you go back and go, gosh, I wish I'd never done this huge thing that I can't possibly undo.
Yeah, an entire series.
There
are some things that dropped, like when I was reading Evolution today. I went through there and went, I had all this set up for this thing I didn't ever use. And I left it in there because I thought it was a good red herring to make people think the story was going to go that way. But it never materialized because shit happened in between. So now you're kind of like, do I keep it there or does it work because it keeps people guessing?
When I did the cover, when I worked with the wife and we put the cover together for a Tree of Liberty, we selected a cover that represented what I thought was going to be the ultimate conflict in that book. That conflict never materialized when I finished the book.
Does it matter?
And no one has said a single damn thing because it's a cover that reflects accurately the genre. So it's okay.
Story. Yeah, not the story.
Not the story.
The genre. Yeah. Yeah, that's a wonderful place to be. You just stick some spaceships on there and you're good to go.
Well, in this one, it had like this alien installation that looked like a tree coming up that was glowing all purple and a couple of grav-looking racers flying past it. When I wrote the story, I originally intended to have like this anti-ship weapon on Mars that was going to blow up an alien spaceship that was attacking them. None of that ever occurred. I did something completely different. No installation was ever found. No grav racers. No ships blowing up. Nothing.
Well, aren't you just a big loser?
Yes, I am, but maybe I can do it later.
Whatever, man. There's no such thing as later.
The odd thing is when I was rereading them, it had been so long since I messed with it. Looking at the cover, I expected that scene to be there. And I was kind of shocked when it wasn't.
Okay, that's sad when you can't. And yet, yeah, it's sad. It happens. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. Maybe it would help if you had, help.
Well, help
I
is
mean,
always good.
maybe it would help if you caught that stuff before you decided to indie publish.
Well, we should talk about that.
You want to talk about that?
I think we should.
You think we should talk about that? All right, fine. So let's talk about this.
I had a request from someone to revisit talking about indie publishing, to talk about the process of publishing. What the person said was that says, "Hi, Terry, I'm a longtime listener of the DRS and I love your co-written stuff with Glenn Stewart. I just want to say to keep up the great writing. And I love it when if you guys would dabble into some indie publishing stuff on the show from time to time. I know it might've been covered many moons ago, but Amazon and the publishing field changes every year. And one day wannabes like me, it'd be great to get more information on that. Keep up the great work and can't wait to listen to the next show." So pretty generic sort of request, but we've talked about indie publishing in the past, the things that publishers have to do, whether they be indie, small, large, the steps we have to go through to take that novel we finished and take it over the finish line, and what trials and tribulations come thereof. And it never hurts to go back over it again because, like the commenter said, things change.
Things change. What has changed?
The most recent thing, Amazon is becoming more ad oriented. Discoverability is becoming more difficult. And it's because the whole thing is becoming more mature. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It simply is the way it is.
Okay.
You've got a lot of people publishing books. Let's step back. Back when, almost 10 years ago, when the Kindle first came out, there was an initial gold rush of people could publish anything. And their chances of having it take off and get some good money out of it were very high. But as more and more people come into the scene, the market stabilizes at a higher point. You've got to do better work. You've got to have better edited stuff. You've got to have great covers. You've got to have good blurbs. Those things became more important. And now there's so many people that are publishing that if you publish something that came out in the gold rush in the early days, it would sink without a trace. And a lot of people that stuck to what was working for them at the very beginning have disappeared from the scene completely. They've left writing and went to something else.
True. Finding a way to stand out is still one of the most difficult parts of it. That's definitely the part that I fail at. And I'm guessing it's always going to be changing depending on, because we don't control the algorithms that they do. We don't control that. They have decided before just to make wholesale changes without telling anybody, and then everything acts differently from a consumer point of view.
To be clear, they make whatever changes they make without telling anybody. They've never told anybody what they're doing at Amazon.
No, and then you go on the KDB boards and it's like, what the fuck? And they come back and go, well, we might have an answer for you in a few weeks.
Actually, the first line people that talk to people that complain, all they do is have canned email responses, and they have no clue whatsoever of what Amazon is doing, because they have no insight. They are just contract laborers that are hired to be the first line response to any problem, and they don't understand it.
No, they don't. It's my hope is that one day we're going to get past this bullshit, but I have a feeling it's going to be this way for a while. And that's why, it's as much as it's going to be a pain in the ass for a lot of people, I think we are going to have to ultimately go into a patronage model. Not necessarily with Patreon. Now, Terry, before you freak out, Terry's making faces. So think of it this way. If you paid somebody $2 a month to get, say, two books a year out of them, you're basically making your money back off that author, but you are giving them money directly to them. And so what's happening is basically Amazon is not getting their cut. Nobody else is getting their cut. You are directly supporting the creator and cutting out all that bullshit.
Totally true.
If you move to a subscription service that you control, you don't have to worry about anybody else filtering your content or any of that kind of crap or any ownership rights issues, whatever, then you're kind of have to start your own thing at this point. And obviously this is another way to get around the erotica ban that's been in place for so long. But it also means that you are no longer beholden to whomever decides what out there. The problem is building that platform. How the hell do you build that platform? How the hell do you let enough people know what you're doing to make that viable?
That's the key issue with doing something like that, is you don't have the reach that Amazon has.
Correct.
I don't know whether this is true or not, since I go solely through Amazon, but I've seen in multiple places people have said that, you know, they're actively selling wide, and for the most part, all the other people that are selling make less than Amazon. Everything else combined, Barnes & Noble, Kobo, Apple, less than Amazon by itself.
Right.
When they're wide. So some people are going to be exceptions to that rule. I absolutely understand that everybody's journey is different. And let's be clear, what Paul and I are talking about, that's what we're saying. It may not necessarily be true for you. Everybody has their own individual course through this. We're just talking about what works for us and what we see.
Yeah. So like Patreon for me, that's, you know, so many bucks a month. And it actually turns out to be about what I made from Severed Press last year. And
I think that may be a credible finger pointing at Severed Press rather than a plus for Patreon, though.
No, I don't think it's a plus for Patreon necessarily. I'm simply saying the subscription model is working for, you know, DRS. It's working for shadowpublications.com. I'm getting more and more comments now on my website of people saying, when are you starting your own subscription service? And I keep getting these comments from different people. So I mentioned something about it on the podcast and people apparently got excited. The only problem with the podcast that I put out there is some folks are listening to episodes from 4 weeks ago. And so I don't get immediate feedback on what they're thinking or what's going on necessarily with that. But the podcast is obviously my biggest promotional tool.
And it's
that's the big nasty, you know, thing that I've got. It's established. I don't know how many people actually listen to me on a regular basis weekly. Just because they download it doesn't mean they listen. But you know, there are a lot of folks who are still subscribing to the podcast and give me all this guff. And the thing is, when I put out a new book in either Derelict or The Black, people are there. People are there. But then I have to let them know, hey, I've got a new podcast coming out. And that means I've got to go pimp everything again. I got to go get promos and all that other shit ready to go stream out there on the internet that, hey, this stuff works. YouTube is bringing in some folks. It's every month my watch numbers seem to go up a little bit, and I haven't put anything out in months. It's just people are finding The Black, and then they're basically churning through all 3 books and going, where's the 4th? So that has worked for me better than anything else that I've been able to do with my other works, all told.
Yeah, it's true. I still remain skeptical until something changes in the marketplace that anyone is going to compete toe-to-toe with Amazon. They've positioned themselves too well. And one day that'll probably change, but it is not today.
No, it is not today. I mean, what I'm talking about, I think, is it's becoming more well established.
I think the concept of it is becoming more well established.
the concept is becoming very much so, because there's a lot of people who give money to independent artists through Bandcamp because they know the authors are getting, or excuse me, the creators are getting a much larger cut if they put it out through there than if they buy it through iTunes or Amazon or whomever. They know that the creators are getting a cut.
One of the things about Patreon, I saw in the news just a couple of days ago, an article talking about their investors are pressuring them to make more money. So they're going to try to be figuring out a way to keep more of what's coming through and pass less on to the creators.
Yep, that's exactly what they're going to do. And that is going to be a problem for us in the next 3 to 6 months, I imagine.
They tried a year ago, they tried to change how the payment collection worked, and the universe went insane on them.
Yeah, because they were basically fucking over the subscribers.
Now they're going to have to try to figure another way to do it. Somebody's going to get screwed so that they can make more money, or they're going to go out of business. Yeah,
I saw basically that the Patreon CEO said their current business model is not sustainable.
Exactly.
J.R. Hanley sent me an article about that. Then went through it, and yeah, it is true to a certain extent. Because the back end they're providing, it doesn't really do anything better than say WordPress, really.
True.
And I've noticed for my patrons that very few of them actually go to Patreon because of the way, maybe that's just because of the way my content is delivered, but very few of them actually go to Patreon. Trying to get them to go to Patreon to look at something is sometimes a real pain in the ass.
And also, without planting any flags about politics here, there have been instances where places like Patreon have silenced some voices because they didn't agree with what they were saying. And that also has implications about who's willing to actually utilize the platform.
If we want to get technical about it, it's called violating terms of usage. That's completely different.
No, it's not what I'm thinking. There were I don't want to get into the specifics of it. But when you start deciding what points of view are acceptable, not how you say it, but which points of view people are coming from, then that becomes problematic and it drives people from supporting others on that platform. DRS has lost some subscribers to their Patreon page because they don't want to give Patreon any money.
Correct. Which goes back to controlling your own content. So that's what I was getting at, is that basically,
sadly, there's not another Patreon out there. There's not something like Patreon to go to that it's easy to use the way Patreon is.
There are things coming on, but I don't know how they're going to really do any better because the back end is expensive. Putting all this content somewhere is expensive. Especially if you're talking about video. Video is extremely expensive. YouTube is our backup site. YouTube is our recording site. YouTube basically provides our back end for all of that storage and what I use to actually, edit off of and everything else. If we didn't have that, this would be even more of a nightmare than it is. And a lot more expensive than it is. So it just kind of depends on how you want to use the platforms to do what you're going to do and what you actually need. But you don't have to have Patreon or something else like that. You just need a website.
YouTube has also had issues with alienating part of the user base because of speech issues.
Yeah. And?
Well, it's just a point of fact. No matter what platform you have, you're going to have its detractors.
Yes.
For whether you agree with the reasons for them being detractors or not is irrelevant. Some portion of society is going to say, I hate Amazon because X. I hate YouTube because X. I hate Patreon because X. And they won't use it.
Right. This is true. So regardless, all of these things, when you sign up for them, have terms of usage and all that other crap. Make sure you read it, because these days they are going to enforce it, because they used to not do so. And of course, you have to remember something. You don't have a right to be on that platform. It is a privilege to be on that platform. There's no right to free speech on the platform.
And the same thing is true of Amazon. They have banned some authors for reasons that they do not specify for doing whatever they did, and permanently banned them from selling books on Amazon.
Right. So
it happens occasionally.
There's there are some things you need to know, and there are some things that you need to consider when you're going to do these things. And especially if you're going to be doing promotions and other stuff like that, you kind of have to decide where you are going to plant your flag on what platform, because trying to maintain yourself on all the platforms is going to be impossible.
And once you get onto a platform, trying to migrate to another one is a huge pain in the ass.
An extremely huge pain in the ass. And of course, the problem is, it's like, well, why don't you go back to having forums on the website? Spam. It's impossible to control. Just freaking impossible.
It's all those Chinese bots.
So then everybody has to have a login. Well, one of them, somebody uses a weak password, and now we're fucked. Now I got to go clean all that shit out. It's just too much to manage. So you let Google or Patreon or Facebook or whomever else manage that bullshit, but then you have to play by their rules. So do it yourself, or let somebody else handle it and pay the price.
That's where things sit now. What it's going to be like in 5 years, who the hell knows? Certainly we don't. No one knows what it's going to be like in 5 years.
Nope. It's going to be... I'm real interested in what it's going to look like in 2 years.
Yeah.
Because of the way all the content studios have been getting bought up, and all the streaming networks that are coming online and everything else, it is all going to be about content. And then suddenly iTunes is going to have like a whole entertainment deal that's just about finding podcasts that they can promote to do this, that, and the other. There's no end to what could happen. Amazon's going to be doing the same thing. So is Google. Everybody is going to be in on this.
And with sites like that, you've got to watch out for rights grabs, them snagging rights they don't need of your stuff to do things. The passive voice guy was talking about Patreon terms of service just last week, or maybe even a few days ago, where he was reading the terms of service, and he saw that they were doing a rights grab that I wish I'd have known about ahead of time. But it says on Patreon, one of the clauses is they have irrevocable worldwide distribution rights for your stuff, including derivatives. That worries me as a creator. It's non-exclusive stuff, but it's there. And they say in the next sentence, this is just so they can display it and promulgate what you're doing throughout the world.
Yeah.
But as a lawyer, Passive Voice says, when it comes to a firm statement and one that's got a little bit more wiggle room, like this is what we're using it for, a judge will rule that the harsher one, the first one, I have rights, is the one that's going to hold. Even though they said the other one, they can still, in the end, do whatever they please.
Well, that's why I don't put anything up there. But I mean, just by being on YouTube, we've already given up rights.
Yeah. I went ahead on Patreon and I put out the first draft of book 9 of The Empire of Bones. Does that give them derivative rights to make a movie off of it? Apparently so. Let's hope that they don't.
They'll be out of business long before they even have a chance of doing that shit.
If they went that far, that's my thought as well, is if they went that far, the universe would collapse upon them.
Yep. Pretty much. They would be burned at the stake. I don't care how many investment bankers they have, they would be burned at the stake. So, yeah.
Now, maybe if I was George R.R. Martin, maybe they could go ahead and take, something creative I did and make a movie out of it, or write their own series of novels based upon my characters. I'm not so worried about that, but it's something you still need to be aware of. If I'd have known about that particular thing before I started doing this, I might have had second thoughts about doing it at all. But in for a penny, in for a pound, now I'm in.
Yeah, they're screwed. So yeah, there's, and we've been off on this promotion side and ignoring the actual indie publishing process, but
well, this is promotion. This is We're talking about
Oh,
things that
yeah, I guess.
creators, we're not
Yeah.
talking, none of this is promotion, really. We're
That's
talking
true.
about some of the pitfalls that you could get into. You talked about websites.
Yeah.
Websites are important too. Mine looks like it came from the 1990s.
So does mine.
And I really should, improve that. But talking with authors that have really clean, really good looking, even WordPress websites, you're talking $3,000-$4,000 to have something custom made. So it's not cheap. Is it going to happen for me someday? Sure, because it's part of my branding. I need to have something that is clean and easy to use, that is not a ton of work for me to mess with, to do anything on.
Yeah.
And that's going to require a professional putting it together, because not me. I am not that guy.
I just don't have the time to cut that shit up and put it out there, and it would still look like ass because I have no design sense whatsoever. So, yeah, I'd have to pay somebody to put the elements together and then go implement it for me, unless they could just implement it off a theme. But anyway, all that notwithstanding.
If you know authors that have great websites, you can find out where they had them built and maybe talk to the people that built them and get a quote for yourself. You should be thinking about that sort of thing.
Yeah, this is true. This is true. That is your presence. That is the place that, if you start a blog and you invite people to go look at your blog every day or whatever else, that means that is going to be there. That is where people are going to find you first. Although
it's your face, it's the face of you.
Yeah, it is your face. Although a lot of people will just search for you on Facebook, and that's how they will find you.
It's all in like the Google search results. If somebody types in my name, they might find Amazon. They might find my website. You've got to hit the main places. Do Google on yourself. See where you pop up. See what kind of things you need to be worried about.
I know what happens when you hit when you type in.
That's when you get the porno stuff, right?
No, you get sent to shadowpublications.com, where you belong. But
where people go to die.
I've been posting at that URL for 11 fucking years now. So, God damn it, it better point at me. 30,000 tweets. God only knows how many Facebook posts and 11 years of blog posts.
That's actually something that I heard someone talking about in advertising on Amazon, is you've got to look at your own name, because some people will go and say, oh, this author that's really popular, I'm going to outbid them on their own name. So if somebody searches for them, they're going to see my ad first. I'm like, what?
Dick move. Dick move. So
every time I search for me, I see Glenn Stewart. I think something's up.
So I should just go ahead and change my name legally to George R. R. Martin. Is that what you're telling me? Or Hugh Howey?
They'd never find you then. Being unique is actually better than having a name that shadows someone else, because you'll get less. You may get some people visiting you that thought they were looking for the other person, but it's not going to work out for you.
They're going to be pissed.
And no, I don't think that Glenn is using advertising against me. So the fact that we've co-written stuff and he's more popular than I am, so his name pops up when people are searching for me. Hey, that's what I expect.
Don't get logic mixed up in umbrage, okay? If you're going to have righteous umbrage.
If I'm going to have righteous umbrage and I'm actually poking fun, I needed this. This is one of those things where you want to make sure that people know I'm poking fun here. I'm not being serious.
Oh, God. See, somebody's just going to do a tiny little clip of that little segment put out on the internet.
That's true.
Without context.
That's the way that works. Just you take a little soundbite out of context and you throw it out there. That's how it works.
Yeah. Next thing you know, there's, pillagers at the door.
You're like, what the hell did I just say? What? What's going on?
Why does it look like Frankenstein's castle out of there?
Why is everybody here with the torches and the pitchforks? What's going on?
And what's with the rolling gallows? What the fuck did I do this time?
Where the hell did you find a guillotine? Who even makes those?
God.
If you talk to OSHA, don't you know how dangerous those things are?
Oh my God. Yeah. No shit.
Somebody could lose an eye.
Somebody could lose more than an eye. An arm, a leg, a head. Because, everybody wants to walk around headless. It's the new vogue.
But dodging back to things like AMS advertising for a second, it's becoming more of a shark field of people discovering that if they want to keep their books out in front of people's eyes, they've got to put a little money into it. They've got to put some thought into advertising. Facebook ads, AMS ads, both of those are things that people use. And we're in one of those transition points to where people are starting to use those platforms. Amazon is transitioning to using ads more. They're actually becoming a player in the advertising field. You can expect, I keep hearing people say that the also bots are going away for them. I haven't seen this personally, but some people say, you know, occasionally they'll see the also bots go away and there's only the sponsored content. It's entirely possible that Amazon may go to that permanently. And what's that going to do to your discoverability if you're not advertising? God.
Well, I mean, that's the thing is the biggest problem I see with this and why I think the content platform is doomed is because now you're making money both ways off the authors, off the content creators, and you're squeezing them.
Welcome to the things that Amazon does. They squeeze their sellers too.
Which is why I think more content creators need to be pushing for a subscription model and just say, fuck you to all of it.
I swear to gosh, if I wasn't making, you know, this is going to sound entirely hypocritical. If I wasn't making a living being on Amazon solely, I'd be much more of that mind. But when I look at what my income would do if I went wide, I can't make myself do it because I have to pay my mortgage.
Yeah, I understand.
So I feel badly saying, you know, I agree with everything you're saying, Paul, but I can't.
Right. And I can't either. So, you know, if everybody who listened to my podcast, you know, chipped in $2 a month, if everybody listened to the podcast, I would be perfectly fine. So, and that would be without even ACX revenue, right? So that's the deal. Can you build that kind of audience?
You have to be nimble to be a writer and a publisher at the same time with indie publishing. You've got to keep your ear to the ground of what's going on because what works today may not work tomorrow. And you can almost be assured that it won't work the day after tomorrow. And I'm being, you know, you're sarcastic when I say that, but what works this year may not work next year. What's working this year will not work 2 years from now, almost certainly.
Yeah.
Because change, even though change is slowing down in the indie publishing industry, it's not going away. If you don't pay attention to it and you think, oh, I've got all this, I've learned everything I need to do, you are fucking doomed.
So in your experience, which works better for you, the AMS ads or Facebook?
I've never done a Facebook ad.
You've never done a Facebook ad? Okay.
I've never done a Facebook ad, so I don't have any base of experience. Weirdly, when I run an AMS ad, I'll run it on the first book in the Empire series, and I'll get the number of impressions that I get at the same dollar amount that I'm willing to spend per click. And in this case, it's a cent amount per click, but it's gone way down from a year ago. And I've heard other people saying the same thing. The market is much more competitive, and I'm probably gonna have to create some new ads and up the amount I'm willing to pay per click. But even at the lower click rate that I have, even though I only have a certain number of low-end number of clicks, people are seeing it. When I put the ads out, I can definitely see my sales go up a little bit through the Kindle Reads program. I can see more pages read. So people are seeing it and they're going and they're buying things, maybe seeing my first book goes, oh, maybe I should go check that guy out and see if he's got something new. So it does work, but you can't look at their dashboard and say, oh, here's what Terry's doing. He's got this many clicks. He's got this many sales. It doesn't translate that way.
Yeah.
I've got 9 books in that series right now. I can look over a period of 6 months in a spreadsheet and say, okay, for every book 1 that somebody read, whether it's through sale or through page reads, this amount, this percentage goes on to book 2. This percentage goes on to book 3. We call it read through. And you can pay attention to, say, your earnings from this month and say, if I've got 9 books in my series, maybe say I only look at the first 7 because maybe the last 2 are recent and I think they would skew the numbers for me. I can look and say, okay, this month, this much money came in on book 1. How does that compare to all the other books? And I can say, if somebody buys book 1 or reads book 1, this percentage of them will go on to read the rest of the books. And I can calculate that advertising for book 1 will generate this amount of sales for me throughout the entire series and probably not be too wrong. So it can be done, but you've got to think about it.
When you do those,
Michael Cooper has a spreadsheet. I don't know where it is, but he's put it out in a couple of forums. I'll see if I can find a link to put in the show notes, because having access to a spreadsheet where you can calculate your own read through is a good thing, because the more insight you have to your income, the better.
When you do those AMS ads, do you combine that with the 99-cent sale on the first book in the series or something like that, or you just leave it regular price?
I do have it reduced a little bit. I tried it at 99 cents for like 6 months, and I did have an increased number of people buying the book, but I didn't notice that I had an increase in revenue.
Okay.
And when I raised it back up to $3.99 as opposed to $4.99, which all the other books are, the amount of sales dropped off, but the read-through didn't really fall off. So $3.99 apparently is okay.
Okay.
It's one of those things that everybody's different. You got to experiment. That's why I ran it for 6 months at 99 cents, is because I wanted to see what difference it would make.
Okay. It's something I'm going to have to consider for the next book. It's something I should consider doing for the current books.
I would not advise you to run an AMS ad on a book that is not part of a series, because just one by itself is not going to pay for itself.
Good point.
If you are going to run an AMS ad, I would recommend you have 3 or 4 books in that series before you start running an ad for book 1, because then there'll be enough read through to where it will not cost you money. It will earn you money.
Okay.
The way that some people that I know I've talked to have done it is they'll run AMS ads on the first book in their series, and when they have a new release in that series, they'll put out a Facebook ad for like a week on that new release. And that's how they do it. And I really need to get off my dead ass and try at least one Facebook ad to see what kind of data I can pull out of that. But the days of being a full-time writer without doing some form of bringing people in to discover you are closing. People that go, oh, I don't need to go ahead and do that. I don't need to advertise. I don't need to have some way of bringing people in. They are going to find themselves with their audience shrinking, unless they're very lucky.
There's an art to building that platform, and it's not something everybody can master. It's I get comments all the time about if I cut the babble short and I just introduce an episode and I'm out. People get very grumpy. They want to hear 2.5, 3 minutes of what's going on with me, where things are. Maybe if something funny happened.
A funny thing happened on the way where I saw this bicycle that is kind of spooky, and I need to tell you about it.
Exactly. I need to tell you about it. So they tune in, just that they enjoy hearing that part of the deal, because it gives the personality, or gives the content creator a personality through a medium where these folks normally only hear me. They're only listening to my work. I don't know how many of the folks that follow me actually read my books as opposed to those that listen. But the thing is, they want to hear from me every week. They want to hear what's going on with me. That is how I built an audience from the very get-go, was putting out some really crazy content and dragging people in. And once that happens, it just kind of starts to pile up upon itself by the connections you make. But it's something you kind of have to work at, and it takes kind of a while to figure out. And not everybody can do it.
It's true. That's one of the things that I do on Facebook. A lot of people have author pages. I don't have an author page. I just got my page, because I figured at the very beginning of this that if I develop something separate from me, it's almost like developing a new personality.
Right. Yeah.
And on my own personal page, I'm the same guy you would get there. I might as well just have one page. Be done with it. Because you'll get my personal life, you'll get all my thoughts on whatever, you'll get my cat videos, you'll get whatever the hell else I'm going to share, and that's a personal connection.
Right. But the problem then is you have to allow people to see your page.
Well, yeah, it's true.
And I have culled so many freaking people from my personal stuff. But see, then Facebook came and fucked us, because what they've done now is with pages, they are limiting the reach unless you pay them money.
And even when you pay them money, it's still way limiting the reach.
It's still way limiting the reach. So like DRS is a private group, so that shit doesn't affect us anyway. Because it's just, this is a safe space for people who listen to the show, and writers who want to babble to one another. That was the whole point. It's limited our ability to grab new audience members, and yet at the same time, it has not. Quite the opposite, in fact. So you have to kind of make these decisions. So now my author page is useless, but I've got over 500 people on it. I don't know how many of those folks actually subscribe or follow me, because what I've noticed is a lot of the people who come to the page aren't subscribed to it. But every time I put something there, they see it in their feed. So somehow I'm getting around these problems for certain folks, but not for others. I don't understand how it's working. Bottom line is, Facebook used to be just like Twitter. It used to be a very good place to find and serve as a forum for folks to, find new content creators or new things to do, connect with people with hobbies similar to yours, and et cetera. And now it's just become this morass. And it's so bad now that it's kind of like whenever somebody says so-and-so wants to follow you, I have to go look at their profile to see if it's a douchebag or not.
I do that every time. And I got to say that when somebody wants to follow me, 9 times out of 10, it's a bot.
Yeah. I go and look at the profile.
It's a fake ID.
I go and look at the profile, and it's like, no. And even if they're not a bot, I look at the profile and I'm like, yeah, I don't want you on my, I don't want any part of your shit. Well, welcome to follow my work.
My Facebook experience has become fairly sedate, because I don't block people mostly. But if you say things that if you're one of those people out there that goes out and causes trouble on the internet, I may go ahead and unfollow you. I may not see very much of what's going on in your life, which is, it always surprises me then when my wife tells me something because I've unfollowed her. I don't know what she does anymore. I'm just kidding. I have not unfollowed my wife.
I unfollow plenty of people just because I don't want the bullshit in my feed.
It has made my feed very sedate.
Yeah,
I like that.
It's made mine pretty sedate too, and I'm much happier for it. I'm a happier person for it, but I still fucking hate Facebook and hate going there.
It's going the way with. This is a kind of a side sort of thing here, but with all of the issues that Facebook has run into with privacy recently, and it also is another platform that has been accused by various groups of silencing some voices on it. I would not be at all surprised to see something very unfortunate happen to Facebook in the next couple of years from a legal and or political standpoint, because they've allowed themselves to be the choosers of content, and that never ends well.
It's just when you keep pulling in the borders, eventually people stop coming. And creators stop posting. And when creators stop posting, there's no reason to go.
Hello, MySpace.
Hello, MySpace. It is the same kind of mess, and that's why you can't plan on, Facebook's going to last another decade. I don't know about that. Because everything that has happened and all the regulations that they're considering putting in would severely fuck their ability to make money. And the same thing for Google.
Facebook, Google, and Amazon have, those three together have like 90% of the search ability on the internet. That's where most people go to search for something. And I realize that going to Amazon to search for something is a kind of strange thing, but people do it.
Yes.
Who understands it? But some people do it. And when you concentrate that kind of power in a select group and they start thinking that they're that and all that in a bag of chips, bad things are going to happen to them.
Yep. Hello,
Mighty
Microsoft.
nice company you have there. Let's go ahead and break you up like AT&T.
You wish.
I do actually kind of wish. I actually do kind of wish.
I absolutely wish at this point.
Google and Facebook and Amazon in their own ways are exercising what I consider monopolistic power.
Oh, it isn't so.
They may not be technically monopolies, but they are effectively monopolies. And things need to happen to them because they're big enough to where they crush the competition now. And that's not good.
That's one of the reasons I'm really interested in seeing how DuckDuckGo works.
My wife uses DuckDuckGo.
They don't store any information. They don't store your personal profile, none of that shit. So basically, they're trying to be a non-evil Google.
Yeah, but remember, Google started off, we're not evil. Now they're evil.
I understand that.
Power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely.
So what do you have to do? You have to keep jumping to the other folks, I guess. I don't know.
That works for search engines.
Yes, it does.
Hello, Alta Vista.
Mosaic.
Boy, I think I'm showing my age by saying
you're showing more than your age. Pretty soon, you and I are going to start talking about modems and Usenet.
Hey, yeah, we could drop into that 300 baud modem conversation.
3 million baud. It's so slow.
Why can't I have fiber at my house? That's what I want to know now.
Oh God, because of other monopolies.
But yeah, the cable monopoly. That's a whole different monopoly. So many things in our lives are monopolies these days. We need to get back to publishing, though, rather than getting off on this tangent against the man.
Tangent against the man.
Tangent against the man. We got to get out of that sucker. We've talked about a couple of different aspects of indie publishing. We haven't really talked about producing the books, and that's a totally sort of different thing. When you finish writing a book, you need to have a checklist of things that you're going to do. And I'm still putting one together, but even after having written like 14 books, I finally said, I keep forgetting everything that I do when I publish a book. And I go, oh, I really should do that. Yeah, maybe I should make a checklist.
Yeah.
If you don't have a checklist, you really need to have a checklist. If you don't have a story Bible, you really need to have a story Bible.
If you're writing a series, absolutely.
If you're writing a series. Hell, even for the books that are not a series, I went ahead and I now have a story Bible for them. If I decide to write that book too in one of those, I'm ready.
You're ready for Freddy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you got the, as we always talk about, you've got the cover, you got your choice of editors. If you're what you're going to choose to do.
Let's deal with one of those at once. Let's deal with, rather than naming them all off. With all of those things, those have become more important than they used to be. Back in the early days, the gunslinger days of publishing, you could slap together whatever kind of cover you wanted. Nowadays, if you're going to get the eyeballs, you've got to have a good cover. And honestly, what is a good cover changes. What is good now may not be good in 5 years. You have to every 3 or 4 years at least look at what the covers in your genre are looking like. Science fiction, for example. Ships are big. Ships are all over everything. But I keep hearing people say, putting people on the cover, people's faces on the cover is now becoming something. It's becoming in the vogue. Maybe that's going to be where it goes. Maybe in a few years, I'm going to have to be looking at how I'm doing my covers differently. You do have to refresh them occasionally.
You're going to have to put Kelsey on there in her battle suit.
And that's exactly what would happen. You think you're joking.
No, I'm not.
I have already thought of that. If it becomes a thing where like the old Honor Harrington covers would have a spaceship, but it would have a person and a tree cat on the cover as well. If that comes back into vogue, then I'm going to have to adjust my covers. Because I want to stay relevant.
Stay relevant.
No, seriously.
You have to be relevant to begin with.
If you let your covers become something like out of the 70s, so out of date that they are just not in vogue anymore, you're not going to sell anything.
I'm thinking about the old James Herbert covers from the 80s. He was a pulp horror writer, if you don't know who that is.
I think I've heard the name before.
Yeah,
but
he wrote some really good books. Moon is, I think, my favorite of his, or maybe The Dark. It's kind of a toss-up.
I'm absolutely not saying it's going to be as bad as the covers have changed between the 70s and now.
Oh God, it's just
that's 50. Come on, that's 40 to 50 years. Okay, that's a serious change.
Or remember all the VC Andrews in the 80s with the flip cover on the trade market on the paperbacks? Yeah, that was really big in vogue for probably half a decade.
Tastes change, and you've got to at least keep an eye on the ball. For your covers, for your blurbs, nothing is ever set in stone. You've got to look back over them. I think that what I'd heard before was recommending every 3 years or so, at least eyeball what's going on with the covers in your genre. And if you see sales fall off on something, look at your covers, look at your blurbs, see if you need to do something, see if something needs to be tweaked. Nothing is static. You've got to keep an eye on what's going on.
Everything needs to be tweaked. All of it.
Sometimes that's true. Luckily, copy editing and stuff like that, once you get it done, you typically don't have to do it again.
Yeah, you hope. You hope.
You shouldn't ever go back to something like that. Once you finish the story and you've published it, leave it alone. Don't go back trying to rewrite anything. If you find a typo, sure, go back and fix that, and the next time you update the book, it'll go out. Just don't get all freaked out about it, because I know, let me step back from where I am there. When I first started doing audiobooks with Veronica, I know I drove her absolutely insane, because she should never have let me listen to the damn audiobooks, because that's a mistake. Never let the author listen to their own work. They'll want to change things. Don't do that. That's just mean. And it's mean to go ahead and try to change anything. So don't. Accept that whatever you've done, that's the way it is.
Oh, but that's one of the beauties of narrating your own books.
Sure. It only takes you like 3 times what another narrator would take time-wise of doing it.
Probably. Probably. But, my process is fucked up, and
we're working on that, man.
Yeah,
we're working on that.
Yeah. Good luck with that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm old.
The way that things are going now, audiobook production wise, there's a third party that's putting it together. So I just now go, it's with someone else. I can't look. I can't change anything. And I accept it. And that's best for everyone. Seriously, that's best for everyone. And I am so sorry, Veronica, that I, was that way. I am so sorry.
Yeah, so going with Blackstone Audio or somebody like that who knows what they're doing, how to put it together, yeah, probably a good deal. Maybe when I get Derelict completely put together, those books will all be podcasted anyway. So maybe when I get all of it done and I got the rights back to everything, I'll have Ray Porter or somebody like that read it from beginning to end, all 35 hours of it. Actually, I think it's more than that. No, it's like going to be like 60 or 70.
I don't know how much he charges per finished hour, but woo.
Yeah, that's a lot of money. That's a fuck ton of money. But I could do the same thing with the black. Who knows? Who knows? For right now, I'm the narrator, and I'm just kind of married to it for the time being, because I can't afford anything else right now. So, I guess the last thing really to touch on is not so much going wide, but going different formats. We've been sitting here talking about audiobooks. It is definitely something you should consider. And it is definitely something that could be very, very lucrative.
I'm going to go ahead and throw out some heresy of change that I have maybe said, change something that I've said in the past. you need to, if you don't have a Mac and a copy of Vellum, you need one. It's become such an integral part of my production process that it's not even funny anymore. It produces all the different styles of print book and the ebooks that I use. The newest release of Vellum added large print books and added the ability to do mass market paperback size books on Amazon, if that's your thing. You can't get that. It's worth the money to invest in a low-end Mac and the price of Vellum. Seriously. If you're not using it, you should be.
Interesting. I found it to be really, really simple, but of course I go from Scrivener to Vellum to production.
You are a tech nerd, though.
I am a tech nerd. I also know how to use Scrivener, so that kind of helps.
I've abandoned Scrivener.
I know. That's okay. I started writing something last night, and instead of opening up Scrivener, I opened up Ulysses. Scrivener was too much of a pain in the ass because I'd have to decide the file name and all that shit. And I was just like, fuck it, pulling up Ulysses. Because sometimes it's just easier.
I've written stuff in Vi before. So
I wrote tons of stuff in Vi. I wrote most of Closet Treats in Emacs, actually, on the console.
That's like a religious war there, getting into the whole Vi versus.
We're not going to get into that. We're not going to get into that. But
it's all a matter of training. When I was trained up, the person that trained me up was a Vi guy. So I never got into the Emacs thing. It's the way that I learned it.
That person that taught me Linux used Emacs.
Mm-hmm. So I fully accept that whatever way you learned to do something like that, which in case you don't know, folks, we're talking editors in Linux. Okay.
Well, Unix.
Well, I learned on
now
Linux.
They both work on Windows. So,
and that's true too. But it's easy enough. If I could write in Notepad and just get the whole text without doing spell checking and everything else, and I'd be happy. I can do my spell checking when I'm done.
Yep.
It's better if I don't mess with it while I'm doing it.
Yeah, I turn all that shit off. I turn all that shit off. I don't have any of the markers. I don't have anything that yells at me about misspelling or anything like that. And for Christ's sake, I sure as hell don't have grammar check on. Yeah,
I've turned grammar check off. It complains to me. The only thing it complains to me in Word about now, pretty much grammar-wise, is where it thinks I need to have a hyphen or a comma.
Yeah, or if I type a double space.
Or if I double a word. If I double a word, it'll complain to me too.
It'll complain.
Whatever the editor of your choice. Scrivener is great for people that write out of sequence. I'm not that guy. I am an extremely linear guy. When I start writing, it's the first word of the novel to the last word. I typically don't do much floating around in there. So a regular text editor works for me, whereas Scrivener might be best for someone else like Paul.
Scrivener is very good for me because I can move scenes around.
Mm-hmm.
If it makes sense, and that usually happens, as Terry now knows, when you separate characters and you have to line up timelines, sometimes you got to move stuff around because it makes more sense that way because it didn't come to you in the order that you actually needed it.
I totally didn't have to move any scene around to make that work. Writing in two separate timelines just meant that I had to slow one up or speed the other up. And you snicker, but it was literally as simple as that for me.
Okay, fine. I could not do that with Derelict. I could not do that with the Black.
Whatever fits your need, dear listeners and watchers, whatever fits your need as far as a tool, whatever tool it is, never be afraid to try a tool. But if it's not working for you, don't be afraid to set it aside.
Yeah. And also look at maybe some advanced things that are there that you didn't know were there that will really save some time for you.
There's an ass ton of videos on various things in Scrivener that you can use. You can learn all kinds of stuff. Yeah, endless YouTubes that you can go to see how people are doing that. And if that's your bag, if you think you might need all the bells and whistles, give it a swing.
It's pretty cheap. It is pretty cheap. Or there's 1,000 of them out there. There's also a Scrivener clone, but I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but it's not fully featured. But there is a lot of stuff out there.
Version 2.5 of Vellum since we were talking about that coming out last week, is going to automate something that I've been talking about doing with the wife for a while, and that's large print books. As it is, we'd have to just have jumped up the font to as large as we possibly could and done some manual messing around in there to try to make it work. Now it's going to do it automatically. We haven't experimented with it yet, but now we just have to say, create this one. Oh, by the way, here's what I want in a large print version, and seriously get more options in doing it.
Well, nice.
So that is what we're going to do with that. I don't know that I'm ever going to go to a mass market paper size. Maybe for a short story, I would go to a mass market paper size, but I don't know. Or something like that. Something like that. But the thing to remember with print on demand is you're paying per page. If you go to a smaller size book, you're going to have more pages. So contrary to what you might think, a paperback, a mass market paper size book is going to take more chunk out of your change than a 5x9 or 6x9 rather.
Right. Depending on how many pages you have.
Yeah. Because depending on how many words, if I take the same novel that I'm selling in 6x9 and make it 4 and a 4 point whatever it is by 5, 6 point whatever it is for a mass market paper size, that's going to have a ton more pages and it's going to cost me more. And that makes very little sense, but that's the way it is.
I could see publishing an 80 page, 100 page book in mass market.
Mm-hmm.
That would actually make a lot of sense.
Because it wouldn't take up as much space. A short story in a larger format is just ridiculous. It is just ridiculous.
Even a 20,000 word novella at 5x or 6x9, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculously small.
You get to the point where you don't even have anything on the spine.
Yeah, exactly. And in my humble opinion, if you can't read the spine, you've got a problem. Because people are never going to find the book on the shelf. So yeah, mass market paperback. I like that idea actually. The
way that I haven't, like I said, I haven't tried any of it, but it's a custom size that Amazon will accept. And there's a blog post that the Vellum folks put out that has information on that.
Interesting. Okay.
So if you have a Mac and you're not using Vellum, you should be. If you don't have a Mac and you're not using Vellum, you should be. It's just been that much of a time saver for me. I can't tell you how many hours of effort it has saved me. And my time is my most valuable resource as a writer. Anything I can do to take time of other things off my plate is worth it.
Yeah, definitely. Find a process that works and improve upon it when you can, or change it when you have to. But, hopefully if it's a repeatable process that doesn't suck, then you should be good to go by book 3, you should have it down.
I'm going to disagree with that in a very minor way. You fall into habits. Whatever you're doing in 3 to 6 months, evaluate where the bottlenecks are.
Right. Yeah.
And figure out what you need to change. Because if you say after 3 books, you've got it figured out. No, after 3 books, I found a new thing that I need to change. I fixed one thing and that's revealed another problem that I need to address. It's a process. This is just going to freak you out, Paul. It's a process that involves continuous improvement. I just used corporate speak.
Oh my God. Who are you?
Maybe we should have we need a lean Six Sigma team to look at our publishing process.
There's a pod in his house. Terry has become a pod person.
Corporate speak bingo.
Oh, bullshit bingo. Yeah. Bullshit bingo is always fun.
Have you ever taken like a little bingo thing of all the corporate speak stuff and go to a meeting and try to get bingo out of it?
Yes. We had an entire development team do that.
That is awesome.
The worst part was when James stood up and said bingo and then sat back down.
And the manager's like, what?
One of the managers knew what was going on, and he just kind of rolled his eyes after the meeting. He's like, I wish I'd been playing with you.
But back on subject, whatever you're doing, don't be afraid to look at it and see if parts of it are not working. because when you fix something, that's going to reveal another weakness somewhere else. That's just the way things are. One thing conceals another thing. So always 3 to 6 months away from what you're doing, reevaluate and see if there's something you can do to smooth your process more. It's always going to be changing. Don't be afraid of that particular change.
Yeah. That's going to be, I mean, when I'm ready to publish again under my own masthead, it will have been like 1.5 years, 2 years since I've done it. And it's going to be a nightmare. I just know it's going to be a freaking nightmare.
A checklist. You need a checklist.
A checklist. That's for sissies. But
I've only published 14 of my own novels, and I'm just now getting around. I just put it together, and I'm just using it for this book, this newest book. So yeah, I've never used one before. I've just go, oh, I forgot to do that. Oh, I should have done that. Oh, I really shouldn't have done that.
Or when you publish it and you figure out that you've used the wrong draft.
That has happened.
I know it has.
To other people. Thank God I have never published the wrong draft or, God forbid, the wrong book.
Oh, the wrong book. No, I've never done that.
I have heard of people and seen on Amazon where somebody has updated a book because they put the interior as the wrong book.
Oh, God.
So
okay, that's bad.
Yeah. So it can be worse. Have a checklist and look at everything when you're publishing because it can be worse than you possibly imagine.
Yeah, you think that.
I'm pretty damn sure after having read somebody that published the wrong version of their book, I am ultra paranoid about it now. Whenever I upload one to Amazon, I go to look inside and I look to make sure that not only has it got the date in the front and the copyright that is today's date because I've just built it, and I stick the date manually in there so that I will know when that was generated. I also look and make sure that the title is that it is actually the right book because I am now paranoid about doing that.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Nobody wants to be that guy.
Nobody wants to be that person. Nobody wants to be that person. Well, we should probably wrap this up. You can tell by the sun on my face that it's setting.
Yep. I realize that we've jumped all over the place while talking about indie publishing, but there's just so many things to talk about that it's hard to dive down deep on any of them. Yeah, not in a show like this.
No, not in this format anyway.
There's plenty of resources on the internet to dig into the various things. Go use them.
And then when you have specific questions, you reach out.
You go to places like the Dead Robots Society group on Facebook and you ask other writers and you get the answers you need.
Yes. Or more questions.
Definitely more questions part.
Well, speaking of questions, if you have more questions for us, you can send us an email to show@deadrobotsociety.com. You can tweet me at Paul_E_Cooley, or you can join the listeners of the Dead Robot Society Facebook group where all the insanity happens. We have to thank our wonderful, I screwed up. You can find us on YouTube at youtube.com/DRS podcast. And we have to thank our wonderful host, Pod Hoster, who makes all 4 bazillion episodes of the Dead Robot Society available for your ear holes. You can support us on Patreon at patreon.com/DRS podcast, where for as little as $1 a month, you get access to early shows, exclusive content, live shows, and other mayhem. And if at the $10 level, you get your name read. And our $10 patrons this week are JD Barker, Veronica Barca.
Start that over, man.
JD's backing. JD's backing. $10 patrons are JD Parker, Veronica Red Dress Jaguar, Jack F. Why isn't exploit a dirty word, Erickson? It is in my book. Kelson Disco Move Funky Chicken Dance. Okay. Isabel Cushy, Rick Shaw, Lisa Slack, Nathan Cosby, Cheryl Winters, Tracy Bodie, John Kilgallen, Devin Lee. Drew does percussive maintenance work on Writer's Block Bernardi. Good for you, Drew. Chris Winder, Andre Conde Moraes, DJ Chamberlain, and J.R. Handley.
Thank you, folks, for your support. We deeply appreciate it.
We do deeply appreciate it. Now, with that, it's time to get the hell out of here.
Good. Dinner's calling.
That's right. Dinner is calling. So we'll see you next week, folks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.